Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. With the Season 5 Reloaded update, we obviously saw some pretty spicy patch notes. Nerfs to some of the top SMGs with the Blixen, the Armaguerra, the PPSH, and surprisingly, one SMG that hasn't seen too much attention as of late got a decently significant buff. The CX9 ended up getting some multiplier buffs to make it hit harder and have a better TTK. It also got a sprint-to-fire buff to make it even more competitive and close to what we have with some of the Vanguard subs, which, as we know, completely dominate the close range meta because of their aspect that they have 10 attachments. Being able to have good control while also focusing a ton on mobility as well is going to just allow those SMGs to dominate, hence why we really haven't seen too much going on with the MW and Cold War SMGs. But after this update, the CX9 is looking better than ever. Surprisingly good in a lot of ways, I should add. So we are here on True Game Data. As always, big shout out to Tony for putting in the work and getting us this information so we can so easily convey it in videos here. 300 HP as always, looking at combination shots. We are going to break down the base stats of everything here in just a moment, but this graph here that we're about to see, it's got the CX9 just with the monolithic suppressor on there because nothing else that we're using affects the TTK in any way. We're going against the best TTK PPSH setup with the 230 barrel on there. Obviously the name boost 71 or 64 rounds now, and the recoil booster. The Blixen's best TTK setup, the MP40's best TTK setup, and the Armaguerra's best TTK setup. So we're going against some very tough competition with the CX9 here. And as we scroll down, boy, oh boy, do we get an interesting story with this graph. So our orange line here is obviously the CX9, and you can see, through the first 11 or so meters, it's basically a copy and paste of the MP40. Like, these two are so identical here, so close to one another that you would not notice an actual difference in game. It's also not all that far behind the Blixen here. Now, the PPSH, really good through those first 8 meters, then it drops off to be behind the CX9. The Armaguerra here, pretty much the same deal. After 10 meters, it drops off. You'll notice the CX9 and the Blixen actually have the two best damage ranges here. Blixen a little bit more so than the CX9, but then it drops off crazy hard, and then it becomes the worst TTK SMG for mid-range, whereas the CX9, pretty small drop off. And you can see over range, the Vanguard PPSH and the CX9 again have basically the same exact TTK through 25 meters. This is never something you'd be able to differentiate in game, and that 25 meter range is a really good gauge for where SMGs are actually competitive. Obviously, when you get to 30, 35, 40 plus meters, that's not really SMG territory. You're going to notice the lack of bullet velocity there. You're going to notice the low damage there versus rifles, LMGs, other weapons meant more so for mid-range. So, through the first 30 meters is pretty much where we're looking, and the CX9 is absolutely holding its own, beating out the Armaguerra, beating out the MP40, beating out the Blixen. Its only real competition is the PPSH, which we all know is obviously a very good SMG. So that should be a testament to how good this CX9 is. But those aren't the only stats that really prove that this gun is now honestly a meta SMG. By the way, as we're going through all this today, if you guys are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. We are on the road to 1 million subscribers, and every single day I got you covered with news, updates, loadouts, tips, you name it, you're gonna find it right here. And if you guys enjoy this video, a like rating would be seriously appreciated. Really does help the channel grow and push it into the algorithm and send it out to new viewers. But that being said, let's look at these summary stats here, where it compares all sorts of super critical information for SMGs. You'll notice our ADS times here. We can actually go ahead and zoom in a bit as well so you guys can see a little clearer. ADS time, second best here, a little bit faster than the Blixen, a little bit slower than the MP40, miles better than the Vanguard PPSH, right? The fire rate, pretty good. PPSH obviously is crazy because the magazine. Its base range is the best out of them all. That's why it has that good damage drop off. If we were to say add a barrel onto this, that damage range would probably be extended by about 2 or 3 meters maybe, but that to me is not enough of an a bonus to risk all the mobility cons of that, so we don't go for that. Velocity is the best out of them all, so in those mid-range areas, 20, 25, 30, 35 meters, it's going to feel like it's going to hit more consistently because of the better velocity. This is what really surprises me, the movement speed. You can see it actually has the second best movement speed only to the MP40, beating out the Blixen, the PPSH, the Armaguerra. So this thing does fly. And then its ADS movement speed is ridiculously good, bro. 3.43 as compared to 2.7s pretty much across the board, 2.8 for the MP40. That is a significant leap. with how fast this CX9 is. So even without a full-on strafe build, this thing is crazy fast. Now, on the Armaguerra, if you were to throw on all the various strafe attachments, it would bump up a decent amount and certainly rival the CX9. But the CX9 doesn't even need those attachments to be that fast, which is just wild to me. I was not expecting it to have stats this good for movement, considering it's not a Vanguard SMG. Now, for sprint to fire, it's relatively average. It's on the slower ends compared to some of these, but this is what got buffed, so it's now closer than it's ever been. Same deal with attack, sprint to fire as well. It and the PPSH are very, very much so similar, which obviously, again, is super important considering the PPSH truly is probably still that #1 gun. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, also look at that reload time. Faster than the Vanguard ones as well, especially with the setup that we're rocking here today. So, long story short, the CX9 is spicy, all right? This buff really made it a game changer. It is now no longer just a really fun MW SMG to use. It actually can hold its own in the current meta, which I love to see. So let's talk loadouts here. Obviously on the graph, as you saw, we're running the monolithic suppressor just to keep us off the map and to slightly extend that damage range. Now, as I mentioned, you could certainly use a barrel on this setup. It's just going to slow it down. Obviously, the barrels that you want to be using, the 38E or the 38 or the 38S, all of those slow down your ADS and your movement speed, which is not really ideal because that's one of the things that keeps this gun standing out, right? For what it's worth, the 38S does have that built-in suppressor, but it is just a little bit slower than no barrel with monolithic for a very minimal gain in damage range. So I just don't feel like any of these are actually worth it. You could certainly try it out if you can see if you like it for yourself, but for Warzone, I don't really feel like it's necessary whatsoever. Instead, we're going to go for the tack laser. This will help out with that sprint to fire a little bit more, which is nice and ideal. Also, the hip fire on this thing is pretty accurate as well. I also go for the 50-round drums. Largest magazine in this case doesn't really hinder your movement all that much, but it's a huge game changer, especially considering 30 is the next best extended mag. You absolutely have to have that larger magazine for any type of squad engagement. One-on-one, 30 maybe could cut it, but 1-on-2, 2-on-2, so on and so forth, you gotta have that large magazine. And when you pair that 50-round mag with sleight of hand, this reload is almost instantaneous, which is so clutch, so crucial for fast-paced gameplay and fighting at a squad disadvantage or anything like that. That quick reload is huge. And then lastly, I like to go for the FR stock for the better movement and the better ADS. It hurts your control, but it's like next to nothing for these close range fights. You don't notice it. This thing absolutely is super, super easy to shoot. So the CX9, my friends, is feeling better than ever right now. If you're looking for a new SMG to mess around with, if you want something that's not just a basic old Vanguard sub, would highly recommend jumping in and trying this thing out because it is a banger and I've had a ton of fun using it the past couple of days. That being said, that'll wrap things up for this one. If you guys enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like on it. It would be seriously appreciated. And if you're new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.